and life of Chinese nationals abroad, and he urged relevant governments to do everything possible to ensure the health and safety of Chinese nationals, in particular students, as well as their legitimate rights and interests. And his call was actively responded by foreign leaders. The MFA has been working with relevant departments to act on the important instructions of General Secretary Xi and the decision of the party. State Councillor Wang Yi and the party committee of MFA have asked over 280 foreign missions to give priority to the Chinese students overseas and really practice the vision of the Foreign Service, that is to put people front and center. We must mobilize all resources and take prompt actions and do everything we can to take care of the Chinese students as we treat our own and to ensure their safety and health. In a short period of time, we have introduced a host of forceful measures. Our diplomatic missions have stayed in close contact with the students to understand what they need and what difficulties they face, and to help them address practical difficulties. The Consular Protection Hotline has been kept open around the clock, and Chinese embassies and consulates have opened 24-hour consular protection hotline to answer whatever questions Chinese students may have. In addition, through website, WeChat, Chinese media, we have stepped up the spreading of knowledge of containment and protection, recommend long-distance medical service platform, and circulate through multiple channels, guide on containment of COVID-19 by overseas students and the host country's health regulations. At the same time, we have been reaching out to Chinese nationals through multiple ways, in particular Chinese students. Our diplomatic missions have encouraged the Chinese community to pair up with students and provide assistance to them, set up a platform for Chinese people to help each other, and to provide services in terms of material supplies, procurement, and take care of the quarantined persons. Our embassy in Germany has worked with Chinese students, 85 Chinese student associations, to set up 101 group chats for Chinese students there, covering 35,000 people. Our embassy in the United States has invited experts to have communications via video link with Chinese students and Chinese nationals. Our embassies in the United States, the UK, Germany, Italy, and ROK, our ambassadors have appeared on CCTV newsroom to communicate with students and the Chinese community representatives. The live broadcast of an interview or communication with Ambassador Cui attracted over 100 million viewers. Our embassies and consulates have also been working to urge the host countries to safeguard the health and life and rights and interests of Chinese students. Our ambassadors and consul generals have been writing to presidents and chancellors of universities, asking them to look after Chinese students and help them addressing any difficulties they may face in terms of accommodations and education. Recently, about 100 Chinese students in Russia were unable to gain visa upon landing for reasons of isolation. The embassy has communicated promptly with the Russian side and figured out this problem. Some countries have asked all students to move out of their dormitory for containment need. Upon learning that, the Chinese embassies immediately acted to ask relevant countries to allow, as a special arrangement, Chinese students to continue to stay in their dorms. In Spain, 4 Chinese students contracted and confirmed to have COVID-19, and our embassy and consulate there have been urging local hospitals and authorities to treat Chinese students and arranged online consultations with Chinese doctors in China to provide professional advice. In case of discrimination against Chinese nationals, our diplomatic missions speak out at the first available opportunity, take actions immediately to push back such acts, and to make representations in an effort to safeguard the rights and interests of Chinese nationals. Since the outbreak occurs, there has been a shortage of masks and other supplies. Our embassies and consulates have been thinking about what our students need and have been acting to address their difficulties based on the plan laid out by the Chinese government. By various means, they have been collecting masks, sanitizers, tissues, and other urgently needed supplies, and to distribute health kit to Chinese students. Many of the supplies of the health kit come from the personal masks and embassy reserves. Chinese embassy in the UK has prepared 200,000 health package to ensure that everyone will have one of those. In Sri Lanka, there is a great demand for supplies due to curfew. At the same time, outside of Colombo, there is a big demand by the Chinese community in terms of masks. So the embassy has been working with the Sri Lankan police to pass on masks and other supplies to Chinese nationals outside of the capital. Right now, the MFA is or continues to prioritize the distribution of health pack, and we continue to provide 500,000 packs to countries where there are a large number of Chinese students, including 11 million masks, 500,000 disinfectant, guide on containment measures, and other supplies. Many countries have locked down the nation or some cities. The MFA is working with civil aviation to arrange for health kit to be shipped out on a priority basis so that they can reach Chinese students in a timely manner. I have one of the pictures with me. That is a health kit provided by the our embassy in Iceland. There is mask, disinfectant, and hand scrub. Well, it may not be a lot, but they convey the love and care of the motherland, of the party, and the Chinese people. Chinese students have said that they truly are overwhelmed by the care coming from the motherland, and they are more confident in defeating the mass outbreak, and they will disinfect and finish their study and come back to contribute to the development of the country. Well, it may not be a lot, but they, in their personal account, that I may never forget that there are students from all over the world, but so far I only see China distributing containment supplies. They are more confident in defeating the mass outbreak, and they will disinfect and finish their study and come back to contribute to the development of the country. Some students it may not be a lot, but they handle the outbreak in a scientific manner. I may never forget that there are students study at the same time all over the world, but so far I only see China to be worried distributing containment supplies. We have also been sending medical experts and task more confident in Iceland science-based national guide, and they will disinfect and in each country study and come back to contribute Chinese medical. Some students, it may not be a lot, but they the local government's containment outbreak in a same time, I may never forget that there are students studying at international all over the world, but so far I only see China general in Milan. We have also been sending Chinese community and are more confident in isolating in the door and online step of disinfections in each country to study. And thanks from Chinese medical some students, well, it may not be easy to continue they and the government containment outbreak in a same time. I may never forget that there are students studying international all over the world, but so guide our own Chinese China general in Milan. We have also been sending Chinese community and are more confident in isolating in the door and online step of disinfections in each country to study. And thanks from Chinese medical some students, well, it may not be easy when our states and the government containment outbreak at the same time. I may never forget we have sent out chartered flights and extra flights, open extra flights to take back Chinese China general in Milan. So we have also been sending Chinese community and are more confident in isolating in the door and participants of disinfections in each country to study. And thanks from Chinese medical some students, well, it may not be easy when our states and the government containment outbreak at the same time. I may never forget in recent weeks, because of sent out chartered flights and extra flight policy changes and flight changes in Ethiopia, Cambodia, Bangladesh, and other countries, some students were stranded on their way back.
在医院管理方面，从为属维管医院各省份和解放军调集了42600多名优秀的医务工作者，组成了340多支医疗队。
Most of them are students. Upon learning that, the Foreign Ministry directed immediately Chinese missions to act swiftly to protect consulate assistance and protection to the stranded people and to provide for their accommodation food. The embassy also sent them masks and other supplies. With coordinated efforts by departments both inside and outside China, the problems were worked out. All those stranded persons are now back safely with extra flights. Now there is still a risk of a resurge of the outbreak at home. As the COVID-19 continues to spread around the globe, there are new challenges. Our diplomatic missions are watching the involvement of the situation every day, get to know what our students need and what they plan to do. From what we have learned, right now, most students overseas choose to stay where they are. Experts, following WHO advice, also stress that given the current circumstances, it is important to cut as much as possible cross-border movement. Chinese civil aviation authorities have cut back on international passenger flights. At the same time, we do notice that some students face practical problems, and they have to come back to China. And the CAAC has made it clear that they will initiate special air travel mechanism targeting cities where there is big demand and cities that has the capacity to contain the COVID-19. Actually, a lot of students have come back in recent weeks and months. At the same time, we are considering further steps for those who need to come back. We will make arrangements in an orderly way, taking into account the situation on the ground. Today, a flight has left for the UK, and the wheels off time was 9:30, so it is on its way to the UK to bring back those in need. For the containment need, inbound travelers need to follow regulations, including the screening, inspection in exit, and quarantine after they enter the Chinese border. It is for the health of themselves and also for the general public. Well, the Foreign Service will remember its mission, will continue to serve the people, will put our lives on the line to continue to engage in this battle against COVID-19 and to serve Chinese nationals overseas wholeheartedly. In the face of the outbreak, our students are also fighting bravely. Students in Germany, the UK, and Japan have formed containment group and put in place mutual assistance platform and to engage themselves in local containment efforts. They have been stepping up self-precaution and protection and mutual assistance, and they've been helping embassies to distribute the health package to students, and they have been playing an irreplaceable role. In this fight against COVID-19, our diplomats are standing together with our students for as long as it takes. This is a people's war against a virus. All Chinese nationals, including students, are doing their part in this fight in their own ways, and they are contributing their share to the final victory against the disease. I want to stress again that the party and the government have the health and well-being of Chinese nationals, including our students, at our hearts and mind. The motherland will continue to be the strong support of our Chinese people, including students. To serve the people will remain the mission of all of us in foreign service. We will continue to act on the instructions of General Secretary Xi Jinping, the party, and the government to care for them and to ensure their life safety and well-being. And we will stand and work with our students to fight and win this war against the epidemic. Thank you, Minister Ma. Now I'll give the floor to Vice Minister Tian Xuejun.
Good morning. As COVID-19 is spreading in many countries, we must follow very closely the safety of overseas Chinese students. They are valuable assets of the party and the people. The party and government pay close attention to the health and security of its students abroad. To support and care for them is an important part of our overall efforts to protect all overseas Chinese citizens during the outbreak. The Ministry of Education is acting on the General Secretary Xi Jinping's important instructions and the Central Committee's decisions, and taking solid measures with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Chinese diplomatic missions on this front. At the same time, the Ministry of Education is asking local governments and universities to fulfill their responsibilities. So we're making efforts both at home and abroad. For example, we have worked to alert the students to protect themselves against the virus, offer advice and consultation, provide medical supplies, facilitate their access to medical services, help resolve their difficulties in life and education, encourage universities and the whole Chinese community to make donations, strengthen consular protection, and uphold legitimate rights and interests of Chinese students. We're making all these efforts to deliver the support and care of the party and government for overseas Chinese students. Our goal is to do whatever it takes to safeguard the health and safety of our students overseas. To put it simply, we have strengthened our efforts in 6 areas, namely, to strengthen guidance on prevention, provision of medical supplies, treatment of patients, psychological support, assistance for those in need, and consular protection. Let me elaborate on them. First, strengthen guidance on prevention. The Ministry of Education developed a COVID-19 prevention and control guide for overseas students. Professor Zhang Hongwen and other renowned experts were invited to give lectures to overseas students, which made a great hit among the students. Second, strengthen provision of medical supplies. The Chinese diplomatic missions are pulling medical kits, including masks, through various channels and working around the clock to deliver the health packs and care packs to the Chinese students at the earliest opportunity. And this work is still ongoing. Third, strengthen treatment of patients. The Ministry of Education and Chinese diplomatic missions set up a daily reporting system for overseas students. Emergency response will be triggered immediately after an infection or suspected case is detected. We can see that the number and proportion of infection of overseas Chinese students is generally at a low level. Fourth, strengthen psychological support. We are pooling resources of Chinese universities to provide 24/7 psychological consultation for overseas Chinese students. We have set up consultation hotlines to offer help for the students and their parents. Fifth, strengthen assistance for those in need. The education officers of the Chinese diplomatic missions have gathered the overseas students through the student unions and WeChat. Some embassies and consulates have mobilized the local Chinese enterprises and people to help those students in need. We also work to resolve some problems facing a few students whose visa will expire soon or who are asked to leave their dorms. Sixth, strengthen consular protection. We have asked the Chinese diplomatic missions to take very seriously the individual cases where Chinese students are discriminated against or attacked, and to lodge timely and strong representations. The Ministry of Education's online platform, Safe Study Overseas, continued to issue safety updates for Chinese students, sharing with them typical cases where life and property of them are under threat during the outbreak, and making calibrated suggestions. Going forward, we will continue to assess the situation and improve our plans accordingly, and spare no effort to work with the MFA and its overseas missions on outbreak response to protect overseas Chinese students. Thank you.
Now I give the floor to Vice Minister from CEAC. Good morning, everyone. As the situation of COVID-19 outbreak changes globally, China's focus of its response has been adjusted accordingly, from preventing internal spread and export of cases to preventing both case import and domestic resurgence. In accordance with the requirements of the interagency response task force, and to curb the growth of imported cases, the CEAC introduced a new policy. We call it the 5-1 policy. That is, every airline can only keep one air route connecting China and another country, and can only operate no less than one flight every week. At present, 47 Chinese and foreign airlines have regular flights connecting 61 destinations in 40 countries, and the total number of international flights is kept within no more than 134 every week. Of course, this is a dynamic weekly schedule, and it will be adjusted accordingly. For example, this week, we only have 108 flights internationally. Such a reduction of international flights is to stop the infection through aircraft to China. But at the same time, we have kept a minimum number of flights to make sure that when needed, Chinese citizens, especially students, can come back home. In order to reduce the risk of onboard transmission to ensure both flight safety and epidemic control, CAAC has done the following. First is to keep the technical guidebook for airlines and airports on epidemic control updated. The latest one is the fourth version. This guidebook provides upgraded preventive and control measures in light of the latest developments, especially global epidemic situation, and provide guidance to airlines and airports to abide by the regional specific and tiered epidemic control measures. Second is to ask airlines to properly control the international passenger load factor, arrange the cabin layout reasonably, and separate passengers' seating as far as possible. Third is to ensure all kinds of health checks, including pre-boarding body temperature check, onboard patrol of passengers' body temperature. And fourth is to reduce the onboard movement of people and set up temporary isolation zones on the plane so that passengers showing symptoms of fever, fatigue, cough can be isolated in a timely fashion to avoid onboard transmission. Fifth is to do a good job in aircraft disinfection. The above-mentioned measures can effectively prevent the virus from spreading through the aircraft and ensure the health and safety of passengers. Now I give the floor to DG Madam Zhang Yang from NHC. The NHC attaches great importance to health and safety of overseas students. We have been addressing the questions and concerns of our students, including the spread and transmission of the disease and personal protection. And we have hosted press conferences and organized experts interviews to address their concerns and problems. And also we have opened different kinds of columns to raise public awareness, to answer questions, and also to provide public advice on the official account of the NHC on Weibo, WeChat, and other platforms. At the same time, we have released several articles on the protection during the outbreak, including what overseas Chinese should do, including what we should do to provide psychological counseling and how to wear a face mask. And through the help of our diplomatic missions, our students overseas can get access to all these information and enhance their personal protection. All the above-mentioned information can be accessed on the official website and on the official account of the NHC on Weibo and WeChat and other platforms. Recently, China has sent out several epidemic expert teams to other countries. During their work overseas, they have been working with local students' unions and hosted seminars and teleconferences to talk to the students to answer their questions. And this has been widely welcomed by our students. Also, we have been working with our medical teams overseas to provide guidance to the students, overseas students, so that they can better protect themselves against this virus. At the same time, we have been working with the Foreign Ministry to include in the health pack guidebooks on COVID-19 prevention. And as we have been working to arrange chartered plane and temporary flights to take our students back, the National Health Commission have been working with the Foreign Ministry and the CAAC and provided medical staff on board so that we can provide medical emergency assistance on board and during the whole flight. Going forward, we will continue to implement all the instructions from the CPC Central Committee and the State Council and work closely with other agencies to protect our students overseas, to ensure that they can safely go back home and to protect their safety and health of all the Chinese students overseas. Now the floor is open.
谢谢主持人。 中央广播电视总台央视记者提问。那么刚刚呢也介绍了近期呢中国的驻外使领馆向海外留学人
Just
员
now,
是发放了
you
健康
talk
包。
about
那么
the
能否介绍更加
health
详细的
package
情况？
that have been
另外呢，我们也
distributed
了解到
to
部分的健康包
our
呢是
overseas
从国内
students. Can you
通
talk
过
more
国际
on that?
货运物流的
And
方式呢运送出
some
去
of
的。
them
那
are
么能否
shipped
介绍一下
through
在当前国际疫
international
情加剧的
cargo
情况下，
planes.
如何保
As now
障类
the
似的物流以及
situation
人员的运
worsens
输？
globally, how can we ensure such kind of shipment and transportation?
刚才我做了介绍，随着
Well,
海
in
外
my
疫情啊，
opening
持
remarks,
续
I
蔓延，
said that as
不
the
少国家
COVID-19
都出
is
现了
spreading across the
防疫物
world,
资的短
many
缺，
countries face the shortage of
突出的
containment
口罩、
supplies, notably
消毒液、
masks,
是洗手
disinfectants,
液
or
都
even
纷纷的
hand
脱销。
sanitizers.
那么这个情况下，我们的留学人员
So
非
Chinese
常
students
着急
naturally, they are
国内
very
的
much
家长
concerned
也很
about
着
it.
急
So are
党中
the
央国务院
parents.
高度
The
重
Party
视
Central
这个事
Committee
情，
and the State Council
指示外
pay
交部
great
和驻
attention
外
to
使领
that
馆
and have directed
为海
the
外留学人
MFA and
员
Chinese
防疫
diplomatic missions
提
to
供帮助。
help Chinese students
那么
in
在
terms
财政、
of
教
the
育、
outbreak
银行
containment.
等
With the
保卫
support
建
of the
委各部
financial,
门大
civil
力支持下，
aviation, and other
各个使领馆
authorities,
立即行动，
Chinese missions
充分调动
acted
各种
immediately
资
to
源，
mobilize all kinds of
筹措
resources
并
to
且向留学
collect
人员
and
发放
distribute
健康包，
health pack
着
to
力地
Chinese students
帮助留学人员解决
and to
他们
help
实际
them
困难。
address their practical
这里呢，我想举几
difficulties.
个例子。
A few examples.
驻英国使馆
Chinese
呢
embassy in the
举行
UK
了
held a
真
ceremony
情暖学子
to
祖
send
国
the
在
care
身边的
to students
留
to
英学
show
子
that
发
their
放健康
motherland
码
is
的仪式
is standing
是留
by
学人员
them.
大使啊，在这仪式
This
上
is a
和我们的
picture
留学生啊
of the
合影。
ceremony, a group picture of the
那么
ambassador
大使
and
呢向
students
学生代表
representatives.
深情地
The
表示，
ambassador said
在来势汹汹的疫
that
情
in the
面前，
face of the sudden outbreak, you are not fighting alone.
祖国永远
Your
在你的身
motherland
边，
is always standing by
使领馆
you, and
始终
the
是
embassy
你
and
的
the
坚强
consulates
后盾。
always have your back.
健康包将把
The
爱
health
心
pack
传递给每一位，
is going to
留英学子
pass our
给大
care
家带来
to
温
each
暖，
and every
带来
Chinese
健
student
康，
to
带来
bring
力
you
量，
warmth,
带来
health,
信心。
strength, and confidence.
那么驻日本使馆
Chinese
呢通过
embassy
公众
in
平台
Japan has
发出需
publicized
求调查信息，
or has
将
collected
首批发放的3万
the
只口
information
罩
about
提供给
practical need
口罩不足
and
的
distributed
4000
30,000 masks to over 4,000
那么在
Chinese
国内
students who are
配
in
置
need
的
of
健康包
masks.
没有抵达之前，
While the
我们
health
驻旧金山
kits
总
are
领
on
馆
their
不
way,
等不靠，主动作
our
为，
consulate
自行筹措
general
2
in
万多个医
San
用口罩
Francisco took
向
the
疫情
initiative to
重灾
collect
区高校留学人员
20,000
发放。
masks to give
那么我们驻
them
槟
to
城总领馆，
Chinese students
他
in
们在订购
places
的防
that
疫
are
物资
hardest
还
hit.
没有到管的情况下，
The
拿出全部的自
Consulate
用
General
的
in
口罩，
Penang City,
并且在
Malaysia,
当地又购买了一部分
when they're
防疫
waiting
物
for
品，
their
啊，
orders
精
to
心准备
arrive,
了第一批的健康
they
包，
contributed
还有
their
邮信
own
向当地
masks
的
and
中国留学
purchased
人员
some locally and prepare the
那么留学
first
人员
batch
呢
of health
纷
pack
纷地表
and a
示，
note of solidarity.
健康包
Students
让
have
大家切身感受到
said
党和政府的
that
关
the
爱，
health
感受到
packs
祖国亲人的支持和帮助，
have
感受到
really
使领馆
conveyed
始终
the care and
在我
love
们
of the
身后。
party and the government, and they
那么
feel
下一步呢，
that they have the
我们
support
外交
and
部
help
驻外
of
使领馆
the
将结
Chinese
合
people,
各驻在国
and
使
they
领
feel
情况，
that the
继
Chinese
续
missions
及时
are
将
having
健
their
康包
back. They
更
will
多的
protect
健康包
themselves
发放
so
到
that they can
受疫
stay
情影响的
safe.
海外学子当中，全力协助
Going
我们广
forward,
大留学人员
we'll
抗击疫
continue to
情，维护他们的
distribute
健康
health
安全，
pack to
同
Chinese
广大留
students
学人
and
员
to help
共克时艰。
them to respond to the outbreak, ensure their safety and
当前啊，
health,
境外疫情
and to
快
go
速
through this
扩散
difficult
蔓
time.
延，我海外公民，特别
The
是留
rapid
学人员
spread
的
of
安
the
全和
virus
健康
globally has
受到
posed
一
a
定的威
threat
胁。
to the safety and health of
3月
Chinese
25日，
citizens,
民航局
especially
按照
those studying
中央
abroad on this
应对
threat.
疫情工
On
作
March
领
the
导小组的
25th,
要求，
in accordance with
由
the
国务院
requirements
联
of
防
the
联
Central
控机
Leading
制的
Group
具体
and the
部署，
Interagency Task
根
Force,
据外交部
and
提供
according
的
to the
总体需
numbers
求，
provided by
启
the
动了
Ministry of
为
Foreign Affairs,
海外中国留学生
CAAC
配发
started the
健康包
shipment of
物
health
资运输工
packages
作。
for Chinese students
首批通过
overseas.
民航
The
运输
first
的健
patch
康
that
包
will
物
be
资
deliveed by
有
civil
31万
aviation
份，
contains
约
about
300多
300 tons of 300,000 packages. They will be shipped to Italy, South Korea, ROK, France, Germany, the United States, the UK, the Netherlands, Sweden, Japan, Australia, Canada, and Malaysia. The 46 Chinese diplomatic missions in those 12 countries will deliver those packages to our students. CAAC has coordinated with Air China and China Eastern Airlines and worked out an overall shipment plan, according to which the packages will be delivered in various ways, such as in the belly tank of passenger flights or using passenger flights as cargo flights. We want to ensure that they can reach the students as soon as possible. Given the sharp decline of international passenger and cargo flights, CAAC has coordinated with airlines to ensure that the delivery of those packages is a priority. According to the latest plan, the first batch of more than 300,000 packages delivered before the 10th of April, and by yesterday, 116 tons of the to Italy, the US, France, the UK, Germany, ROK, and Canada. In order to meet the current demand of international cargo flights, we support passenger planes to carry cargoes, and we opened fast-track channels so that all their applications can be assessed and approved immediately. At the same time, we've also been implementing the instructions of the interagency task force and carried out shipments of emergency humanitarian assistance and medical assistance. By March 31st, we have carried out 138 chartered flights, transported 109 medical experts and working groups, and more than 2,000 tons of supplies to 38 countries, including the UK, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Italy, Serbia, and the Laos. Thank you very much.
谢谢主持人，我是中央广播电视总台国广记者。我的问题想提给外交部的田部长。我们知道这个在疫情期间呢，很多部分这个疫情严重的国家，它采取了一些像封校啊、停课这样的措施。Some of the countries have closed the campus or stopped or suspended semesters when they were hit hard by the epidemic. And this has affected the normal life and study of our overseas students. What are the measures that the Ministry of Education has taken to address these issues?
In response to the measures taken by some governments and universities to close the campus, the MOE has made arrangements as soon as possible and asked the education offices abroad to maintain close communication with the local education departments and universities to acquire latest information on their arrangements and to urge the universities to properly arrange for our students' life and education. We also urge them to ensure our students' health, safety, and legitimate rights and interests, and help resolve their difficulties. A few days ago, in some countries, there are cases where the universities told the students to move out of their dorms. The education offices made immediate representations. Most cases have been addressed properly. Some embassies and consulates set standby quarantine points in places where Chinese students are in a large number to provide needed assistance. At the same time, the students' unions, Chinese communities, the Chinese companies in host countries, for example, our embassies in the UK has organized 95 students' units to set up 208 points of assistance across the UK to provide assistance to our students. Minister Ma also talked about such practices, and we also encourage the Chinese communities, the Chinese companies, to play their role to provide help to the students. Thank you.
谢谢，我是凤凰卫视的记者，想问一下马部长，我们也关注到一些留学生对于这个回国这个问题还是比较纠结，一方面又想继续学业和生活，
people are still concerned about the returning of the overseas students.
这些留学生，特别是这个疫情严重国家的这些留学生，
what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs do, or do you suggest them to return to China? Thank you.
我国海外留学人员的特点
When we look at Chinese students overseas, we can see that first of all, there is a large number.
据教育部门统计，
According to
海外留学人员
education
总人数
authorities,
是
the total number
160万。
is
那么
1.6
目前
million.
尚在国外
Well, right
大
now,
约有142
about
万。
1.42 million are
第二个
staying
特点呢，
in
这
the
些
countries
留
that
学
they
人
are
员
studying.
我们的留学
And
人员分布在
secondly,
不同的
Chinese
国
students
家
are
和地区。
in
那
different
美国
countries and
就有
regions.
41万人，
We have 410,000 in the United States, 220,000 in
大约
Canada,
22万人。
220,000 in the
德国
UK,
大约11万，
about 110,000 in Germany, France, and 280,000 in Australia and New Zealand, and about 180,000 in Japan
第
and
三个特点
the
呢
ROK.
就是他们所在
And
国的疫
thirdly,
情
the outbreak
发展阶
is
段
at
不同，
different stages in
采取的
different
防
countries,
控措施。
so there are different containment
第四个
measures.
特点呢，就是
Fourth,
留学人员
The students
处境
face
不同，
different
他们的
situations,
需求
and different
也
people
存在
have different
差异。
needs.
所以针对
So
上述
given
情
this,
况，我们必须
we must
要统筹
take
考
into
虑，
consideration all
积极
factors
稳妥、精准。
and to take steady and targeted
那目的呢
measures.
就是要千方百计的确保
All we
留
want
学人员的
is
健康
to ensure
和安全。
their health and
那
safety.
么外交部呢，
The
教育部
MFA, the
和我们
Ministry
驻
of
外
Education, and
机构
Chinese diplomatic
根据
missions
驻在
overseas
国当地的实际
will
情
keep a
况，
close watch on the
面
situation
向
on the
留学人
ground,
员提出了
and
有针
we
对
have
性的
provided
指导
targeted
意见。
guidance to Chinese students in different
那么据我
places.
们掌握呢，
As far as
大
we
多数
know,
留学人员
most
按
Chinese
照世卫
students
组
have
织
been
和
following
国家疾
the
控中心
authoritative
的
advice
权
of
威的建议，
WHO and
秉
China's
持
CDC
非必要
and
不
stop
旅行的原则，
non-essential
他们
travels,
仍然
and
选
they
择留在
most of
当
them
地
have chosen to stay put.
这也有助于
This
避免
will help
仓促回国，
prevent
引发交叉感染。
unprepared travel that may cause
因为中转国
infections,
家的
cross
边控措
infections,
施而中途
so that
受
they will not be stranded
避免
midway during
后续
their
对
travel
学业
because of
签
the
证
policy
可能产
adjustment
生
of
一
relevant
系列的
countries,
影响。
and they can also
那么
ensure that
对
their
于
study and visa
疫情严重国
will
家
not be affected in the future.
确实有
For
困
those
难，
most affected countries
急需回
and
国
for
的
those who
留学
do
人
need
员
to come back
党和
due to
政府
practical reasons,
将及
the
时采
party
取
and the government
必要
will
的
take
措施，
prompt and
协助他
necessary
们
measures to help
有
them
序地
return in an orderly and gradual
那么
manner.
留学人员要在
For
登机之
students
前、
before
旅
boarding,
途中、
during
入
flight,
境后，积极配合
and
民航、口
after
岸
they land, they
和
need
地
to
方防疫部门，严格
collaborate
执行
with
各项
civil aviation,
防疫
border
规定，
management, and local health
既对自
authorities
己的健
to
康，
follow
也对广大
containment
公众
regulations.
安全负责。
It is responsible for their own
我们将继续按照
health
党
and
的
the
国
general
务院有
public.
关要求
We will
和工作
continue
部署，
to
关
follow
爱
up
留学
on
人
the
员，为留学人
instructions of
员
the
服好
party
路，
and the State
解决好
Council
他们的实
to
际
care
困难。
for Chinese students, provide services, and to
好，
address
继续
their
提问。第一
difficulties.
排这位女士。
Next question.
你好，中国日报记者提问。
China
目
Daily.
前在欧美等疫情
Well,
严重的
in
国家，
European
海外留学
countries
生
and the
如何
United
在各种场合做好个人
States,
防护，
where
降
there are
低
more
感染
cases,
的
how
几
can
率？
Chinese
比
students
如有很多留
protect
学生
themselves
住
and
在集
reduce
体公寓
the
里，
risks
在
of
这种情况
infection?
下，
For
他们如
example,
何避
many
免交
are
叉感
living
染？外出
collectively
购物或者
in
是
dorms. How
进行
can they
必要的
prevent
活动
cross
的时候，如何
infections?
进
When they
行
go
防
out
护？谢谢。
shopping, how can they protect themselves as much as possible? Thank you.
We recommend our students to keep very good personal hygiene no matter where you are. Do not spit and cover your nose with tissue or elbow when you sneeze or cough. Pay attention to hand hygiene and wear a mask all the time. And you must abide by the laws and regulations of the local country. In your daily life, you must pay attention to nutrition, exercise, taking enough rest, and keep a good state of mind, because these are all the ways to enhance your personal immune system. When you are in a relatively closed or crowded areas, such as public transportation, elevator cabin, or indoor areas, it is recommended that you should wear a mask. For those students staying in a shared dormitory, you should keep the place clean and enhance ventilation. We recommend 20 to 30 minutes of ventilation and every 2 or 3 times a day. And you should pay close attention to the people living with you, whether they have fever or cough, and proactively protect yourself. And you should practice social distancing in the dormitory and wear a mask and keep at least 1 meter distance when you do have to contact others. If you really have the essential need to go outside, including to do shopping, please always wear a mask in public transportation or in crowded areas. Keep a distance when you talk to others and avoid direct contact. You can bring with you a hand gel to practice hand hygiene. Thank you very much.
谢谢主持人。环球时报记者提问，目前呢，因为这个国际航班大量的减少。
We see the sharp reduction of international flights, and it's really difficult for our students to buy tickets and to come back home. Just now, you've mentioned that there will be a special mechanism to start chartered planes to get the students back. Have we already started this mechanism?
这个刚才呢，我已经提到了。
As I've said previously, in light of the global epidemic situation and according to the requirements of the Interagency Task Force, CAAC has introduced what we call the 5-1 policy, which has significantly reduced the number of international flights. But at the same time, regular international flights between China and 61 cities in 40 countries have been kept, and the weekly number is no more than 134 flights. This is the general situation. But in order to implement the instructions from the CPC Central Committee to take good care of Chinese overseas students, CAAC has launched the special campaign to help cities where there is a concentrated demand and where it is capable and fully equipped to receive, to arrange temporary flights to help Chinese citizens to come back. From March the 4th to 26th, CAAC has arranged 9 temporary flights, taking 1,466 Chinese back from Iran and Italy, among which 6 flights from Iran took back 976 passengers, mainly Chinese students. 3 temporary flights have come back from Italy, and the 4th one is on the way, which will take back another 178 Chinese. And meanwhile, according to the unified decision and deployment of the government, we officially launched today a temporary flight mission, sending a plane to the UK to pick up the students who do have the needs to come back. The first such flight left Shanghai Pudong Airport at 9:30 this morning and will arrive in London tonight to pick up about 180 students. To ensure epidemic control on such long-hour flights, the CAAC has taken a series of targeted measures. First is to formulate control measures for temporary flights in countries and regions with serious epidemic situations to provide strong guidance for the protection of people on board. The second is to work closely with our diplomatic missions and medical staff arranged by NHC to carry out temporary screening and testing before board. Third is to provide special protective and sterilizing supplies to every flight, and medical N95 masks to all passengers to minimize the risk of onboard transmission. And fourth is to ensure adequate ventilation, disinfection, and other epidemic control measures on board, and to separate passenger seats, restrict the movement of people in different zones in the cabin. And fifth is to do a strict and thorough disinfection after each mission to ensure the safety of the next mission. CAAC will continue to implement the instructions of the Interagency Task Force, launch special mechanism to help students who really need to go back to China from the severely affected countries, and ensure the adjustment of transport capacity, the arrangement of air crew and onboard protection to get our students back home safely. Thank you very much.
谢谢香港中评社的记者。请问目前有多少留学生已经确诊感染了？
Do we have the number of confirmed cases among Chinese students overseas? If they were confirmed overseas, what kind of help are we going to provide to them?
我来答吧。截至3月31号，
As
我
for
们在外面的留学生
31st of March,
共有36名。
we have 36 overseas students confirmed infection. Once we have such cases, our embassies and consulates will launch the emergency response mechanism to help their medical services, to provide medical services. So all the 36 students have got proper medical services, and 11 have been discharged from hospital.
谢谢主持人，我是香港经济导报记者。刚才马部长提到，外交部和驻外使领馆积极处置留学人员因为国内航班调整滞留在中转地的问题。请问，如果今后留学人员再遇到此类问题，应该怎么办？谢谢。
And what they should do in the future if they face similar situation. Well, recently, due to the adjustment to flights and other multiple reasons in Ethiopia, Bangladesh, the Netherlands, Cambodia, some Chinese nationals, mainly Chinese students, were stranded. Well, immediately after that happened, the Chinese ambassadors or consul generals went to the airport at the first available opportunity to provide necessary consular protection to Chinese people, and at the same time worked with the airliners and local governments to take care of their accommodation, food, and other needs, and addressed their problems immediately. And we sent chartered flights to take them back, operated by CAAC. So passengers, they are happy. They appreciated the motherland, and they said that they love the motherland and they love embassy. That said, I want to remind Chinese students overseas, including and all those Chinese nationals, to pay close attention to any policy changes of relevant countries and to communicate with the airliners beforehand and double check when they purchase tickets and before they board about the schedule of the flight, in particular connecting flights. When they are transiting, if they encounter any circumstances and they cannot leave, they must immediately contact Chinese diplomatic missions for assistance. They can also call our consular protection hotline, 24-hour hotline. The Chinese Foreign Ministry and our embassies and consulates abroad will do everything we can to help them. Thank you.
就两家媒体，好吧，我们最后2个提问，来。
The last 2 questions.
第4排这位男士。
谢谢发言人。经济日报记者提问：海外留学生如果包机回国，抵达机场后，
after they land with a chartered flight, how they can they ensure their safety during and after their flight? Thank you.
In order to ensure good personal health, we recommend that they should get prepared with masks and other protective equipment and bring with them hand gels and other sanitizers. They should avoid touching their nose, their faces with their hands, and always cover themselves with tissue or elbow when sneeze or cough. During the security check, they can take off the masks just for that time, but they should immediately wear the mask after the security check and get through the security check as soon as possible. It is recommended that they take the stairs and keep at least 1 meter distance from others and avoid face-to-face contact with others. If they take elevators, they should keep a distance inside the cabin to avoid a too crowded elevator. We highly recommend that they ensure and practice hand hygiene, avoid touching doorknobs, elevator buttons with their bare hands, and once they have touched them, they should wash their hands or use the hand sanitizers as soon as possible. Before and during the flight, they should always wear a facial mask and try to reduce eating and drinking as much as possible.
谢谢主持人。中国教育电视台记者提问：我们看到受疫情影响的部分海外留学人员出现了恐慌和焦虑情绪。
Now, some overseas Chinese students are having a panic because of the COVID-19 outbreak. What do you would like to suggest to them?
You have raised an important question. For psychological support, MOE have pulled resources from various universities to provide 24/7 psychological consultation for the students. And many local education departments and overseas education offices have set up hotlines to offer timely consultation for the students and parents. I think you have noticed that many Chinese ambassadors and consul generals have sent open letters to the overseas students and have conversations with the students via video link to show up their confidence. I hope that our overseas Chinese students can have science-based attitude and have more confidence in our ability to prevail over the outbreak, and with the care and support of the embassy and consulates, protect themselves well. In line with the advice by WHO and other medical experts, the students should curtail personal movement to avoid infection. And we hope that their parents, their relatives, and friends can pass on the positive energy and help them to be less panic or anxious to better protect themselves from the virus. Thank you. So this is the end of the press conference. I would like to thank all the panelists and thank you all.